It's my honor to be here today to present to you the Female Entrepreneurship Lecture. I'm especially pleased to speak to such a great group of high school students and very happy to see so many girls among the group. As Jim said, I was born in India and my parents emigrated here when I was 8 years old. My family had businesses in India. They had a sugar refinery, so I always grew up around business. When my father moved here, he looked around for different business opportunities, and he eventually decided to start an import and distribution business, importing cast iron products from India. He had a very small office in our home. We lived in a very small apartment. We were my parents and my brother and I, and he had a small office in our home. And I was about 9 or 10 years old, but I used to help him in just different administrative tasks. I would do his filing after school, just whatever he needed to have done. Eventually, his business grew and expanded, and he moved out and got office space. And I continued to work for him after school and during my high school summer vacations. When I was 13 years old, I learned VisiCalc and used to do his MIS for him. Analyzing his customer accounts, seeing which accounts were profitable, which products were profitable. That training really helped me understand the business world and grow up in and around and know how businesses function. Eventually, I graduated high school, and as Jim said, went on to the University of California, Irvine. I got my degree in computer science and eventually held a couple of positions and decided to move to the East Coast, got married, and applied to law school. I had always envisioned going to business school as I was growing up. I had been around business most of my life and thought I would get an MBA, but happened to apply to law school, and I got into Yale, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to go. It was a tremendous learning experience. While I was attending Yale Law School, my husband had just graduated from NYU's Stern School of Business. He finished his MBA there. Prior to doing his MBA, he had worked as an IT consultant for AT&T Bell Labs. So he knew a little bit about the industry, about the IT services industry. And when he graduated in 1992, or before he graduated, we were thinking about what he should do, what we should do. I was attending law school full-time, and his options were either to look for a position or to start a business. And we decided that we would take the plunge and start a business. So we raised $210,000 from my parents and a close family friend. And while that seems like a large sum of money, and it probably was a significant sum of money in 1992, it doesn't take a long time to run through $210,000. So we got office space, and we decided we would do it the professional way. We would hire, someone who could sell. We would hire an admin person, and we would, the business would start coming in through the door. It didn't actually work out quite that way. In 1992, we were also in the middle of a recession like we are today, and we probably didn't have the right skills in terms of selecting who we should hire. We probably didn't know how to manage them well, to get results. Probably didn't know how difficult it would be to actually drum up that first piece of business. And we ran through that $210,000 fairly quickly and had to really decide whether we wanted to continue with this, and if so, how are we going to do it? So we did something which I think has served us well over the last 17 years. We re-engineered the company, and we moved to a smaller office space. AJ, my husband, and I did quite a few of the support functions and so forth ourselves. We would spend, I still remember one weekend, we spent the entire weekend in the office getting the computer network up. I mean, we'd never brought up a computer network on our own before, although we both sort of came from an IT background, but we just read through the books and we got a Novell network up and running. And AJ started to do cold calling and just grassroots marketing. During this time, I was still attending law school full-time and also had a child, so didn't make it easy on ourselves. We did a lot of things which made it very difficult for us trying to juggle a whole bunch of different things. But we got our first customer actually quite by accident. They were actually trying to call another company which had a similar name, but because our name came first on the list, they happened to call us. And we picked up the phone and we asked them, what was the opportunity? And I guess we did enough to sell them on our ability to deliver on the opportunity, so we made our first sale. And that helped us sort of have the confidence to go out and market more and sell to other customers and obtain other customers. So after that time period, I ended up graduating from law school, and again, as Jim said, decided that I would pursue a legal career, and went to work for Sullivan Cromwell, which is a large Wall Street firm. Did a lot of M&A work and project finance work, and worked 80 hours a week and 120 hours a week and 36 straight hours. And in 1999, Artech had grown. We relocated. We started out in Connecticut, actually, and we relocated in 1994 to New Jersey after I graduated from law school because we felt it was more centrally located and better suited to the business. And in 1999, we were approximately a $4.5–5 million company, and we decided to engage some outside advisors to help us grow. In our industry, while a $4.5–5 million company seems as if it's sizable, it's actually very small, and it can be a lifestyle business, but it's not really a sustainable professional business. And in 1992, while the scales were lesser, it still wasn't a sustainable professional business. So we engaged this outside consultant, and we did a strategic retreat with them. AJ, myself, and one or two other key people from the company. We were very small at that time, and while I had been working as a lawyer, I had been sort of peripherally involved with Artech, not really actively. I would support, accounting or other functions as questions arose, but commuting to New York and putting in an 80 or 100-hour week elsewhere, I really didn't have the time. So when we went into the strategic retreat, the advisor we were working with suggested that I come back and work with Artech full-time. And I really had to think about it. I was working at a large Wall Street firm, making a good salary, had sort of a career that I was happy with, had a life that was exciting at times, got to work on deals that were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, got opportunities to fly on a corporate jet to work on an M&A transaction. It was stuff that was glamorous, and had a lot of friends in the industry in New York, and I had to really think about, okay, do I want to take the risk, leave my career as a lawyer, because I was concerned if it didn't work out, would I ever be able to get a job again as a lawyer? Had to think about that, as well as had to think about how it would be working with my husband 24 hours a day, or being with my husband 24 hours a day. That was probably equally challenging as deciding to leave a legal career. So finally, I did decide to make the plunge, and in September 1999, I decided to join Artech full-time. And we decided, we needed to grow to that $20 million mark, and we needed to have a strategy to grow to that $20 million mark. So we created a 3-year plan, and it had very detailed action items and very detailed deliverables, what we were supposed to do each week, and deadlines associated with it. So it would be things like hire a salesperson by April 1st, and we had different responsibilities allocated, and we decide, did we actually hire that salesperson? Did we actually get the revenue from the new customers that we were trying to get? And so we would do very close monitoring against that action plan. Our focus was on new business development and just diversifying our customer base. So while we were executing on that plan, though, we didn't shy away from opportunities that kind of came across that we weren't anticipating. In the midst of it, actually, we happened to, through some networking efforts, happened to come across an opportunity to respond to an RFP from a very large corporation. And at that time, we were a $6 million company or a $7 million company, something of that sort. And when we got the RFP, you know, I discussed it with AJ, and I was like, we're never going to win this. I mean, they're never going to select us. What will they possibly see in us? But he said, you know, we can just give it our best shot, and we should just do that. And we probably spent, you know, night and day. I still remember staying up all night working on that proposal response. And we did make the down select list, and they did go through a series of presentations and eventually did award us the contract. And that was a turning point for the company because it gave us the confidence that if one company could select us, then there were others that would do the same. And it gave us the confidence to redouble our new business development efforts. And during that time, we also learned how to grow the company through a team. Prior to that, whatever growth Artech had experienced had really been primarily through AJ's personal efforts. But we had some great people join the company in 1999, 2000, in that time frame, quite a few of whom are still with the company today, 10 years later, and have seen it grow from a $6 million company to a $200 million company, and have grown along with it personally and professionally. So in 2001, when the dot-com bubble burst, we kind of faced our second turning point or challenge. We were still a relatively small company, about $11 million in revenue. We'd grown significantly from 6 million to 11 million, had almost doubled, but we were still a tiny company in this space. And all of a sudden, you know, we went into, normally our business slows down over the holidays, and we went into the holidays and the business slowed down, but typically it also picks up in mid-January, early February, and it just never picked up. And so we saw our business retracting, and we had to go back to our core strategy of doing new business development, of creating an action plan and executing on it, and really had to make some tough decisions internally to stay in business. AJ and I had some very heated conversations because we disagreed on what was our what was our ultimate goal? Was it to stay, how do we balance commitment to our existing employees versus surviving through the downturn? And at that point, we were more of an employee-focused, I don't want to say employee-focused, but our business was driven by the employees. We would find new opportunities based on the skill sets of the employees, and we had to re-engineer ourselves to find new business based on new customers, and then find talent that matched our customers' needs, as opposed to taking the talent and trying to find opportunities for them. And it was a mindset change for us because we realized at that point that we really had to focus on the customer first. The employee is always there, but the skill set of the employee really had to change as the customer's needs changed. So there were three major lessons we learned in 2001. One was diversify your client base. Never depend on any one customer or any small group of customers. Stay lean. Even as you grow, resist the temptation to add unnecessary overhead, to incur unnecessary expenses, because it's almost an organizational culture that builds up where you start spending on unnecessary expenditures, and then you can't be lean enough to service your customers. And think ahead of the curve, and think ahead of what's coming around the corner, as opposed to what's here today. As I network with other companies in our industry, the industry's been around for quite a while actually, since the mid-'80s, but has really taken off since the mid-'90s, I think. And when I meet business owners who had a business, who were in this industry in the '90s, they are always talking about, oh, how great it was, because their procurement wasn't strong, bill rates were higher, you know, the challenges that are here today, they weren't there. And they're dinosaurs. Those companies are dinosaurs because they're looking back at what was as opposed to thinking about how they need to innovate themselves to move forward and to grow further. So those were the three main lessons we learned during that time. Another turning point came for Artech in 2005. Our biggest customer, and we were a tiny supplier for that customer. We were a $25 million company or so at that point. And this was, I don't know, maybe a $50 billion corporation with a spend in our space of $2 billion. So, you know, whatever our spend was with them, maybe $5 or $10 million, was a tiny amount of their total spend in our space. They had 45 suppliers approximately that were providing the kind of services that we provided, and we were a very small component of those 45 suppliers. And they decided that they wanted to reduce those suppliers that they worked with from 45 down to 15. So once we learned that this was happening, you know, first of all, we were in shock and thinking about, okay, what's going to happen if things don't go the right way? What sort of impact will it have on our company? What will we do? But getting beyond that, then we started to think about how we put together an innovative proposal so that we actually win. And we put together, and it was a team effort. There's no one person who can take credit for it. You know, it was a team effort by 5 or 6 people to really brainstorm and think about innovative ideas that we could present in our proposal. And we did that, and we were down selected to maybe 25 or so companies that were invited to do presentations. And we went and did a presentation, and again, we put our full effort into the presentation, and after the presentation, or during the presentation, got a very good positive feel from this client. We eventually did make that list of 15 that they cut down to, and not only that, but for one line of business, they selected just 3 suppliers, and we went through another round of presentations for that line of business and made that list as well. And that was a tremendous turning point for the company as a whole, because it took us from a $25 million company to a $60, $70 million company, and then a $100+ million company over a period of 2 or 3 years. Not just because of the contract we had won, but because we won this one contract and we successfully executed upon it, we could go and market to other customers who were of that size and scope, and say, you know, we've done this for this customer and we can do it for you. And it really escalated our growth tremendously. But that 4 or 5 month time period was probably the 3rd most stressful time that we've experienced at Artech, from, you know, the initial startup phase to the post.com bubble phase, because we were in jeopardy of losing our biggest customer. And if we had, then we would have been a different company today. I don't know what company we would have been, but it probably wouldn't have been the same company we are today. And it was very stressful, both personally and professionally, because we take our responsibility to all of our employees very seriously. And just the impact that it would have had on our employees and their families, I mean, we would have had to make some tough decisions if that had not worked out. And we were very fortunate that we didn't end up having to make those decisions. So, and I always like to think of that time in my professional career as sort of running I'm sure all of you guys have read the book, The Little Engine That Could. And I think at that time, we really were that little engine that could, that just tried and tried and tried and went uphill and got over that, that hill or bridge or whatever it was. So that brings us to the current economic status. And for Artech, this is very different from the last two economic situations that we have faced, one when we started and one in the dot-com era. First of all, we are fortunate to have many more customers and diverse customers. So while our customers have pulled back, and depending on the customer and what they are experiencing, we may or may not have you know, as much business with them as we did last year or the year before. But because we have a wide range of customers, we're able to still sustain our growth, and we still expect to grow in 2009 over 2008. But the strategy that we, or the lessons that we learned in prior economic crises continue to serve us well today. Stay lean, ensure that you're productive and accountable, ensure that each team member is productive and accountable for results, and be opportunistic. Take advantages of the opportunities that are presented. I mean, don't veer too far from what your core competency is, but at the same time, don't keep your blinders on so much that you ignore something that, you know, could be great that's staring you in the face. I think I was also asked to speak a little bit about our plans for the future, and Artech's goal is to grow to be a $500 million company. We were originally planning on accomplishing that by the year 2011, but at this point I feel that's an unrealistic goal given the economic situation. So, but I think that we can do that by 2013. You know, we will do that through organic growth. We have been exploring companies to acquire, and we'll continue to do that. And finally, in parting, I have a few words for you students who are thinking about entrepreneurial activities, as well as any other business owners who are perhaps starting down that stream. First of all, believe in yourself. Believe that, you know, if you believe in yourself and you have the confidence that you can do something, then you will eventually do it. When you have a little bit of success, it feeds on itself and you get more and more success. But if you don't believe in yourself, then it's going to be very difficult for other people to believe in you. Second, persevere. Don't give up your dreams just because you don't fail the first time around. I mean, you don't succeed the first time around. While, you know, we were successful relatively early on, we became profitable after about a year and a half in business, and we've not really had to experience failure again. But even if you do, there are so many people out there who experience failure multiple times, but as long as they pick themselves up and go again, you know, you do eventually succeed. And this, I think, is perhaps the most important. Hold yourself accountable. When you're in an entrepreneurial venture, you don't have a boss. You know, and while that sounds like a good thing, sometimes it's really tough because you don't have someone else who you can go to and talk about, okay, what should I do in this situation? Or here are my options. And at the same time, you don't have someone who's saying, okay, the deadline is May 15th and get it done by that date. You're only accountable to yourself. So if you decide, okay, May 15th is not, you know, such a great date, maybe I'll get it done in June, maybe I'll get it done in July, you know, it probably won't happen, right? Because there's no one else holding you accountable. So you have to decide to hold yourself accountable. You have to set goals for yourself that are time-bound, and you have to work on achieving those goals. And last but not least, innovate. Today, Artech is in a business that can be considered a commodity business. Just the trend in the industry, it's a $20 billion industry today with a B. So it's a huge industry. And while we have a relatively small market share of it at being a $200 million company, the industry is becoming more and more commoditized. But the way you deliver on your services, you can always innovate. One of the things we did in 2001, when we were coming out of the recession at that time, was really examine how we can reduce our overhead structures, because we saw gross margins decreasing in our industry. And one of the things we implemented was outsourcing our internal corporate work to our operation in India. We had acquired a small company in India, and while outsourcing is sort of a dirty word, but there are certain things you need to do in order to be competitive. And we ended up outsourcing a lot of our back office operations, as well as some of our corporate, non-client facing corporate work to our India operation. So we were able to deliver the same service at a much lower overhead cost than our competitors. So we had more money to reinvest back in the business. We were able to take more risks because we had more money to play with, because we had outsourced. And that outsourcing made us much more scalable. So when we were going and pitching to new customers, we could show how we could deliver. Even if we were a $100 million company, we could take on a new $25 million project and deliver on it and not fail. And they saw that when we did the presentation. So, so we were innovative in terms of how we delivered our service. But you have to continue to be innovative. You cannot be complacent that I've done all the innovation and now I'm great, because when complacency sets in, that's it. So I think that's pretty much what I had to say. Thank you.
Ranjini, thank you very much for that informative, inspiring, insightful talk. And there's so much from the baby, juggling a baby and working with your husband. And it was hard for me to get over that. That's unbelievable to start a business. It's all consuming, and then to also deal with those other things. The other thing that I thought was very interesting is that you were a lawyer, a top lawyer at a top firm. And I think most of these folks can learn from that you folks will have many careers. And entrepreneurship may not be that first one, or it may not be the last one, but it will probably fall somewhere in between. So don't ever think that you can't try something and change your career during that, that journey. So Ranjini's lecture has been presented by the Female Entrepreneurs Alliance, an initiative that supports aspiring and current women business owners. The Alliance was founded by Ethne Swartz, one of their college's top professors, and the chair of the Marketing and Entrepreneurship Department. I'd like to thank Ethne for all her fine work, and I'd like to ask her to present Ranjini with a token of our appreciation. Ranjini will also be on this plaque, which will go into the Institute. She's the 6th name. So if you're ever interested in visiting the Rothman Institute or sitting in an entrepreneurship class, please don't be shy, just give us a call.